What would you do if you witnessed a heated argument in public? Most people would look away, hoping not to get involved. But today's story is about someone who chose to step in and make a difference. On a warm afternoon in Virginia, at a bustling Walmart store, tensions flared near the electronics aisle. Two strangers, Olivia and Claris, two women from different walks of life, found themselves in a heated argument that quickly drew the attention of onlookers. The air was thick with unease, as the situation seemed ready to spiral out of control. But then, stepping calmly into the scene, was none other than Baron Trump. What happened next not only diffused the conflict, but left everyone there inspired. This is the story of how one young man's maturity and calmness turned a tense moment into a powerful lesson in understanding and compassion. It was a typical busy day at a Walmart in Virginia. The store buzzed with activity as shoppers moved through the aisles, picking up their items and chatting with family or friends. Among them was Baron Trump, browsing casually, blending into the crowd. The atmosphere seemed ordinary until raised voices broke through the background noise. The commotion came from the electronics aisle, where a small group of onlookers had gathered, their attention fixed on two women in the middle of an argument. One of them was Olivia, a black woman in her mid-20s, her stance strong and voice filled with frustration. Across from her stood Claris, a white woman around the same age, her arms crossed and tone sharp as she defended herself. The argument grew heated, and the crowd watched nervously, sensing the tension escalate with each exchange. Standing at a distance, Baron observed the scene with quiet curiosity. Though he could have walked away like most people, he didn't. Instead, he edged closer, trying to make sense of the situation. The contrast between Olivia's frustration and Claris's defensiveness was clear, and it seemed like neither was ready to back down. The energy in the aisle was tense, but Baron remained calm, considering his next move. What happened next would shift the atmosphere of that Walmart and leave everyone watching with something to think about. The argument between Olivia and Claris grew more intense with every word. Olivia, feeling disrespected, raised her voice, accusing Claris of being dismissive and inconsiderate. Claris, in turn, snapped back, accusing Olivia of being rude and blowing things out of proportion. Their words collided, emotions flaring as the tension in the aisle became palpable. A small crowd gathered, murmuring among themselves, their unease growing as the situation seemed on the verge of boiling over. But just as the argument reached its peak, Baron Trump stepped forward. With calm confidence, he addressed both women, his voice steady but firm. He didn't take sides, instead acknowledging their frustrations with empathy. His words didn't command, but invited them to pause and consider a different approach. The onlookers watched in silence, surprised by how quickly his presence began to shift the energy in the room. Baron Trump, with a calm and collected demeanor, suggested the women move to a quieter area of the store to talk. His tone wasn't forceful but reassuring, making it clear he wasn't there to judge, only to help. Surprised by his intervention, Olivia and Claris hesitated before reluctantly agreeing. Away from the prying eyes of the crowd, Baron turned to Olivia first, asking her to share her perspective. She explained how she felt disrespected when Claris bumped into her and accused her of being rude before she even had a chance to speak. Baron nodded, acknowledging her feelings, and then turned to Claris, who shared her side. She explained that Olivia's reaction had come off as confrontational, which triggered her own frustrations after an already bad day. Baron listened patiently, never interrupting, letting both women express themselves fully. Once they had finished, he spoke with sincerity. "It sounds like this was a misunderstanding that spiraled out of control. Neither of you intentionally tried to hurt the other, and maybe, instead of leaving here angry, this could be a moment to find some common ground." His words resonated with them, and for the first time, the tension between Olivia and Claris began to soften. Baron emphasized that it takes strength to let go of a grudge and move forward, turning a negative moment into an opportunity for understanding. His calmness and maturity created a safe space for both women to reflect, setting the stage for what would happen next. As Baron's words settled, Olivia and Claris began to lower their defenses. For the first time, they truly heard each other's perspectives, and the tension that had filled the air slowly started to dissolve. Olivia glanced at Claris and sighed, admitting that her reaction might have been too strong. Claris, in turn, offered an apology for her tone and acknowledged that she could have handled the situation better. Their words weren't forced, but genuine, as both women recognized the misunderstanding that had caused their argument. Baron stood by, a quiet but steady presence, his calm and mature approach having set the tone for this moment of connection. What could have ended in further conflict instead became a moment of growth and reflection. Thanks to Baron's intervention, two strangers left with a better understanding of each other and themselves. As the situation resolved, the crowd that had gathered began to disperse, but not without murmurs of admiration for Baron's composure. People exchanged glances, impressed by how a young man had managed to step into such a tense moment and handle it with such maturity. Olivia and Claris, now calmer and visibly more at ease, turned to Baron with gratitude. "Thank you for stepping in," Olivia said, her voice softer now, her earlier frustration replaced with a genuine smile. Claris nodded in agreement, adding, "Most people would have just walked away, but you didn't. That says a lot about you." Baron, ever humble, simply shrugged and smiled faintly. "I just believe in finding common ground," he replied. "Life's too short for unnecessary fights." His words carried a wisdom far beyond his years, and the sincerity in his tone left both women reflecting on the encounter. As they parted ways, Olivia and Claris walked off together, chatting quietly, their earlier hostility replaced by an unexpected connection. Baron quietly returned to his shopping, blending back into the store as if nothing had happened, but the impression he left lingered with everyone who had witnessed the moment. As Baron finished his shopping and headed toward the exit, quiet whispers began to ripple through the store. "Wait, isn't that Baron Trump?" someone murmured. Others exchanged glances, nodding in recognition, surprised that the calm and composed young man who had diffused the argument was someone so well known. Meanwhile, Olivia and Claris lingered near the parking lot, still reflecting on what had just happened. "I can't believe he stepped in like that," Olivia said, shaking her head with a small smile. Claris nodded thoughtfully. "It's rare, isn't it? Most people would have just walked away or made things worse. He didn't have to help, but he did." They both fell silent for a moment, the weight of the encounter sinking in. Baron's actions hadn't just resolved their argument, they had reminded them of the power of empathy and the importance of finding common ground, even with strangers. This story isn't just about who stepped in, but about the power of kindness, understanding, and finding common ground, even in the most unexpected places. Baron's simple but profound act of intervention reminds us that sometimes all it takes is one person to turn a difficult moment into an opportunity for growth. Whether it's stepping in to help resolve an argument or just offering a listening ear, the impact of small acts of kindness can ripple far beyond what we see in the moment. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed or been part of a situation like this? What would you have done in Baron's shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's start a conversation about the power of empathy. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell for more inspirational stories. Thank you for watching, and remember, life's too short for unnecessary fights.